Perfect.
There we go. Okay, everyone, welcome to the Engage's Quarterly Leadership Lab. We are in Q3 and we are so glad that you're here today. We meet here every quarter, always on the 15th of the first month of each quarter, to give leaders a space to step back, reflect, learn. Each lab is virtual and presents a guest expert to share how we can sharpen how we think and how we lead. So we always say at Engage, leadership is a contact sport. And if you're in this room, it means you're playing at a high level. You're responsible for people, you're responsible for strategy, for outcomes, and you're here because you know that leadership takes constant work. So these labs were created to help you step out of the daily rush, hear from other leaders, reconnect with what matters, and sharpen how you lead. This event is for our past, current, and future clients of Engage. Whether this is your first time joining us or one of many, welcome to our community of leaders. I am Michelle Alexandrowitz, your host, CEO, and founder of Engage. I am a trained organizational and clinical psychologist whose goal is to bring leaders like you top research and knowledge about how to best lead your people. You are experts in your business. We are experts in people. Together, we get work done. So let me introduce you to Engage. Engage is a boutique consulting group that uses psychological science to solve business problems. I, along with my team of other psychology experts, do this through education and training, coaching, and people data. So things like predictive index, DISC, engagement surveys, things like that. We specialize in high growth and private equity backed transitions in the small to mid enterprise market, but we have several different industries and several different sizes joining us here today. We at Engage believe that whatever business problem you're trying to solve, it's your people that are the answer. So let me share with you on what you can expect for today. So the purpose of us coming together, first and foremost, is community. This is a space for community. Leadership should never be done in isolation, especially in high growth environments where pace is relentless. So we've built a place where you can come and connect with other high caliber leaders who are navigating the same challenges, and we talk about it together. Second purpose, this is about new learning. This is not your average leadership content. We scan top business publications, leading academic journals, so you don't have to. We curate what's most relevant for the challenges that you're facing, and we share it here in the labs. Finally, our purpose is partnership. The content that we bring to these labs is specifically built around the needs that we see in your companies. So as we talk to you, as we work with our clients, as we listen to the challenges that you're facing, we take those challenges and then we build a response here in the lab. So these sessions are built for you and by you because we're actually trying to solve the problems that we're all dealing with. As you know, we always talk about opportunity gap. Here's the standard, here's where we are. The opportunity gap is somewhere in the middle. That's what this work is. So this is a way for you to explore what it can look like to bring Engage into your organization. Today's lab is just a glimpse of the kind of high impact training that we can bring to your leadership teams across industries. So if something sparks today, we're here to keep the conversation going. So let's talk about how to participate today. You are absolutely welcome to keep your cameras off and simply listen, especially if you're on the go. But if you want to get the most out of today, I highly encourage you to open up the chat. Ask questions, share what has worked for you, offer feedback, tap into the collective intelligence that is in this room. It's the best part of the experience. So if you haven't done it already, open up your chat and get ready to have a conversation. So let's get into what to expect today. We always run lab fairly similarly. We open up with some coaching questions. We do a 30-minute lesson, and then we take a few minutes to kind of close things out, think, process before we get back into the chaos of the day. Okay, so to kick things off, we always like to start with a group photo. So this was our group photo last time. Elizabeth, if you can share us in the group photo this time, explain to us what it is, and then we'll get this party started.
Super. Welcome, everyone. Now, to be in the group photo, you will have to turn your camera on if you want to participate. What happens is, rather than counting down a 3, 2, 1, and someone's, You get to click it when you're ready to go, and all the photos will come in together. Last time we held up whatever we are drinking and hydrating. I think that might not be a bad theme this time. Summer hydration is important. So I'm going to start this right now. You'll get a prompt for you to, hold on one second. You'll get a prompt for you to start the party, exactly as Michelle said. So here we go.
I have a new Phillies mug too, so this is perfect to share.
So smart. All right, so group photo. Have you gotten the prompt yet? If you're getting the prompt, go ahead and leave a thing in the chat. Here we go. No prompt yet. All right, here we go. You should have gotten it. Anyone?
Erica, can you confirm?
Oh, thumbs up. Awesome. Okay, so go ahead and do that. You'll see an invitation from Group Photo by Zoom. Go ahead and click open and then take your own photo when you're ready. And those should be coming in.
Oh, it's coming in. It takes a minute. Okay, yeah, you got to open up your chat. Yeah, prompt it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the instructions. And there it is. There it is, not bad. Okay, so we will collect that and share it out again. So hopefully that wasn't too painful. All right.
Now they're coming in. There
and
we go.
I see you, Stephanie. I see you. Like your orange vest too.
Yes!
Representing. Excellent. Okay. All right. So I think we're in a good place, Elizabeth. Shall we move on?
Let's move on as they're coming in. Thank you, everyone.
Excellent.
This will be
Thank you.
shared with you in the post email.
Yes. And for those of you that don't know Elizabeth, she is our lab manager. So thank you, Elizabeth, for the work that you do behind the scenes and running this and the build up too. So thank you for participating. You look great and we will get that out to you. Okay. So let's open up with some coaching questions. Open up your chats for me and let's take a minute and talk about wins and celebrations. This is the same coaching question that we will ask every single time. Okay. We have to get good at at answering the question, what was successful this past quarter? Okay. We cannot get better if we don't know what's working. We can't get better if we don't know what our strengths are, because we build on our strengths to get better. So if you were at our lab last time, come and take a look at some of the victories and the wins and the celebrations from last time and be inspired, because 3 months ago feels like 3 years ago. I don't know about any of you, but I was looking at this stuff and it literally felt like last year. So take a minute, reflect on the successes of the last quarter, and let's open up the chat and share some of the brilliance in the room. So please, if you're willing, what are some successes that you saw this last quarter? What goals did you hit? What went well? What victories did you have? What problems did you solve? What new things are coming through? Erica launched a new client. Excellent. Thank you for kicking us off, Erica. I appreciate that. Take a few minutes. We're not rushed here. Reflection takes time. But again, this is a muscle. So coming to these labs, it's kind of like going to the gym. If we want to be good leaders, we have to lift some weights and we have to ask ourselves some questions. These are some of the weights that we lift in doing that work. Hired a new member of your team and they're already doing great. Thank you for sharing, Lynn. What else is going well this past quarter? The start of Q3 is often a strange time. Q1 and Q2 are very busy, very heavy, very work heavy. And I know if I asked you what was difficult, we'd have a laundry list. If I asked you what went wrong, we'd have a laundry list. But what are the things that are going well? So I'm not seeing a whole lot happening in the chat. Stephanie. Stephanie is developing an emerging leaders program in her community. So we had some beginning conversations to talk about what can that program look like. So here's another point, in fact, and thank you for sharing, Stephanie. A lot of times when we write things down in the chat like this, it's just the blip of an idea. It's just the thought. Before something can actually exist and manifest, you have to be able to identify it and write it down first. So this is that opportunity to do that. So I'm going to move along for the sake of time, but
We've got
please.
one from Sarah just before Stephanie, if you give that
Oh, did I?
a little focus.
Sarah focused on giving meaningful feedback to team members. Oh, we talk about positive conversations all the time and how as leaders, our currency is conversations. Currency or conversations. Conversations or currency. Who do you need to be having a conversation with? Meaningful. I got you, Sarah. It came through loud and clear. Thank you for sharing. Very good. All right, so let's start to transition a little bit into the topic for the week. And what we're going to talk about is leading the collective. Now, a lot of our conversations in the past, and also a lot of the one on one work that we've been doing with all of you, our clients, and in coaching, have really been focused on the individual change. So, when we think about change, we spend a tremendous amount of time reflecting on what is the challenge that I'm having and what do I have to do. And that is incredibly important. But leading ourselves or leading one or two people is very different than leading the collective and leading the masses. And even if you are only leading maybe 3 or 5 people, odds are you're probably leading the company in some aspect. So it's really important to understand the nuance of how do I lead myself or one or two people versus how do I lead many. So I am really excited to introduce to the table today Erica Kaufman. So Erica is going to be presenting a majority of this topic today, and she has a background in psychology as well, but also comes to us with incredible talent experience. She's been a VP of talent and has taken a lot of the topics that we talk about and really brought them to life in a lot of the companies that she's worked for. I'm excited to share with all of you that Erica also works with us at Engage. She is one of our executive coaches, and she is also someone that's able to obviously teach and talk about some of these topics. So, Erica, I would love to invite you. Can you please introduce yourself and can you share a little bit about you? I'm excited for our community to meet you today.
Well, thank you for the introduction and thanks for having me. I saw Elizabeth Kaufman just entered the room. No relation, but I'm interested in getting to know you. Maybe we are long lost relatives.
Yeah.
So my background, as Michelle mentioned, is in psychology. And I know that conjures a lot of images of couches and therapy, but I've only ever practiced in a business setting. And I've found that my background gives me a deep understanding of people and how they change and how they can be at their best. My company is called Evolve Leader Kinetics. I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but really, I believe that the heart of any organization is its people, and people and organizations progress, they advance, they succeed through strong leaders. And my company really focuses on the intersection of leadership development and change. So I'm really excited to talk about one of my favorite topics. I've learned a lot from my clients who are change leaders, and so bringing that into the discussion today as well.
Awesome. Erica, thank you so much. So, I said it again and said it before, I'll say it again. We put this content together based on who we're working with, right? So this stuff comes right from you, our clients. So I want to just share a couple of things before handing the mic back over to Erica to kind of set the stage a little bit and kind of bring to life some of the things that we've been seeing, some of the challenges that we see a lot of our clients experience, especially as we think about this transition of leading people through change individually versus the masses, versus the collective. So some of the things that we see often when we talk about the collective challenge is collective grief. This is huge. And when it comes to grief, no one deals with grief the same, right? It's always nuanced. But we see it happen organizationally. Employees are mourning the loss of their identity, their legacy leaders, trusted routines, and it's often expressed in the form of resilience or fatigue or disengagement. But the truth is, it's actually grief. And a lot of times we see this manifest or come up in reality in this us versus them. So we see the old guard versus the new guard, the legacy versus the new people, the original company versus the acquired company. And man, it can cause a lot of damage and harm when we create that us versus them. But I've yet to really see it come out of a negative place. It's coming out of the fact that I don't have the same CEO anymore. I don't have the same routines anymore. I don't have the same systems anymore. Like there's a lot of things that are now different. And that manifests collectively, and we start to see this collective grief happen in a company. Another thing we see often is this hero to shared leadership transition. So what does that mean? The shift to distributed leadership requires building collective leadership capacity. So what that basically means is when you're in a small organization or a small team, I'm used to doing the work. I'm used to being the one to like stand up and solve the problem and figure it out. And that's wonderful. But when companies get bigger and expand and get larger, now it's not just the individual hero, it has to be a collection of leaders that are finding success together. So sometimes there's some identity loss in there, some shift in like, I don't have as much as the spotlight anymore. So kind of that hero mentality, we see that appearing in like how people show up to lead. And the last one I want to mention is coordination as culture. I've been hearing a lot lately, people say things like, oh, we have a real communication problem. And then when I start talking to the team, or I do interviews, or I do observations, one of the things I'm coming back with, I'm saying, you guys talk to each other all day long. I don't think you have a communication problem. I think you have a coordination problem. So the shift in communication norms is now different. And we're seeing it as a communication problem. That's how it's being identified. But it's more of a coordination thing because my team is no longer this small group. Now it's this large entity. So I want to share something with you, and I want to share a number with you. And if you're a note taker, I want to encourage you to write this number down somewhere. Write this number down on a Post-it or, on your notebook or whatever. But 120, the book is in the bottom left-hand corner. I read a couple of Yuval Noah Harari's books, Nexus and History of Mankind. And he talks about the number 120. 120 is the approximate number of meaningful connections a person is able to make. So you have in your brain the capacity to have about 120 meaningful relationships, meaning I remember your birthday, I know what's going on in your life, maybe not every single detail, but we have a relationship. Beyond 120, trust and communication shifts from personal to more structural. Because what happens is I no longer have the ability to connect with 120 people. I can't do it. And why I'm bringing this up is when we think about the shift, especially in the small to mid-enterprise world, the mom and pop where you have less than 120 people, culture is informal. I can have an open door policy. Call me if you need anything. If there's a problem, call the CEO. We will figure it out. Trust is built through one-on-one contact and relationships and time spent together. Leaders lead through showing up and being present. They're doing the work themselves. Feedback is direct and personal and often happening at the work site. But when things get bigger and it starts to scale into that corporate entity at like 120, now the personal connection is no longer there, and the personal connection also has to scale. So that means we're communicating through systems, tools, list serves, WhatsApp, emails, and those systems now start to carry the culture. So leaders design how work happens, not just what happens. So now leaders aren't actually doing the work right alongside of you. They're directing and managing the work, and they're a little bit more removed now. This is why shared values, purpose, and structure hold the group together. This is why your mission, your vision, your values are everything. It's not just a poster on the wall. It's what's going to move everyone. So this is something I want you to think about while Erica takes us through this next phase, because she's going to talk about leading the collective and leading considering some of these things. So hopefully you found something in yourself there where you're realizing the shift from the small to the more corporate. And Erica is going to give us some tools and concepts to really think about that. So Erica, I am going to stop the share. I'm going to pass it over to you. And it's 20 after, and if you want to take it till 10 of to have a full 30 minutes.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Well, I appreciate that setup and context. So to help get us going, in the chat, on a scale of 1 to 10, how prepared do you feel to lead collective change? If 1 is not at all and 10 is extensively, just show with your, well, I guess no one has their camera on. In chat, what number would you say reflects how prepared you currently feel to lead the collective? Elizabeth, we're going to have you do some math as you see the answers. Maybe you can give us an average. This is
5,
also
4,
a
6.
check
Everyone's
of,
falling in the middle.
Yeah, they're
yeah.
coming in. A lot of we're leaning towards 6, so feeling a little prepared. Oh, my hand's going up. Feeling a little prepared, but a lot of 4s as well. So we're hovering around 5. A strong 5.
Okay, so if there's anything that you can share in the chat or take yourself off mute, any areas that you feel least equipped, hopefully we can
These are
address that today. But interested in your thoughts, and we're going to work on getting those numbers up, maybe at least 1 notch by the end of this 30 minutes. Anything that we're seeing in terms of specific areas where people might be struggling or looking for help?
I spell chaos. I'm adding some stuff too.
Yes. Okay. So chaos and disorganization, shifting mindsets. We're definitely going to be hitting on mindset shifts.
Not
Okay.
enough time. Oh my gosh, if I had a nickel, right? There's never enough time.
Yeah. So how can we expand the time that we do have? We'll actually talk about that too. How, okay. How to communicate, content, knowledge, and confidence. All right. Well, thank you. That gives me a sense of how we can really tailor this to things that you're looking to gain.
Oh, I'd love to highlight this from Abby, engaging and offering ideas without overstepping.
Thank you. Okay, so to set the context, and Michelle, you offered some great perspective from what you're hearing. I want to throw out a statistic that I saw from the PwC annual CEO survey. This finding, they do this many years, 28 years now, and this statistic in particular is consistent with what's been out there for the last few years. 42% of global CEOs do not think their company will be viable in just 10 years if it stays on its current path. That's crazy. To me, that suggests that we are not just going to be seeing incremental changes, a new strategy, a new system. We're going to be seeing wide scale reinvention for companies to be able to continue to stay in front of this crazy pace that the world is changing. And this is so important because if you aren't already feeling like you're a change leader, I think this only further builds the case that change leaders aren't going to be your SMEs that come in from the HR department. They really, this has to be a capability that all leaders have. And we have to think differently about how we prepare and equip all leaders to lead change effectively. Because you, if you've led through change before, may often feel like we're leading in the fog. And I love this analogy because if you've ever had to drive in the fog, you know that we probably don't have time to wait for it to lift. We have to get to work. We've got to get the kids where they need to go. We can't just wait for that divine clarity. Instead, the only way to see the path is just to start going, to start moving. And as you start driving, a little bit more of the path reveals itself. And so that's kind of how we have to approach. We have to dive in. And a lot of the methodologies, a lot of the ways that we have traditionally been guided through change are probably not sufficient for the kinds of changes that we're experiencing now. Cotter, Pro-C, I mean, there's a lot of good thought leadership out there. They were just built for a different time. So here is my methodology, my framework. And first, you're probably going to think like, whoa, there's so much going on in this slide. So, and change is hard. Let's face it. If it was simple, we wouldn't be here talking about this. Today, we're going to zero in on the essence of this methodology, 2 components. When I really think this is what the leading the collective comes down to. It's clarifying the behaviors. So we got to get super granular. We can't just say we need you to start collaborating with the sales team. We have to be very specific about what that means, when, for what purpose. And to the point that was made in the coaching question, we also have to be able to dig into mindsets that are underlying those behaviors. So we'll hit that today. And the other component is that we've got to be able to modify all the signals that people get from their environment. Key to leading the collective is making sure that all the levers that we pull are sending a congruent message. That's how we get change in mass. And if those levers are sending conflicting messages, we're going to slow things down or we're going to confuse people. So we're going to talk about behaviors and system levers. So let's start off with what we can learn from the change or die research, which, if you're familiar with this, it's staggering. We found, and it's actually been shown over and over again in the research, that when people are given a pretty serious diagnosis of severe heart disease, the need to change is pretty clear. You need to adjust your diet, you need to adjust your lifestyle, or else you are at risk of dying. So the need to change is compelling and clear and urgent. The behaviors that people need to modify in order to make this change are also clear. And yet what has been found over and over again is that 9 out of 10 people don't make the changes or can't sustain them just 2 years later. There's been some alternative protocols or treatment protocols that have gotten better results. And so we can learn from some of these exceptions. For example, there was one researcher who put in place a protocol that was dramatic, it was aggressive, and it was holistic. He had his patients working with all different elements that included psychological, emotional, spiritual. And what he saw from his research was just in 2 years, 77% of his patients had made sustained change. So we're going to look at some of the differences in his approach versus the others and what we can extract from that for our work. So we said that behaviors are key to being able to make change. We have these compelling reasons to do different things. We have things we're trying to implement, strategies we're trying to put in place. But for change to happen, people actually have to do something. So we talked about the granularity that we have to have. We have to be very specific with what we expect. But just like these coronary patients, if we can't adjust or address what might be underneath the surface, the mindsets that are maintaining those behaviors, we're going to see our efforts stall. For example, a heart patient who also might be depressed might find it difficult to make lifestyle adjustments for a life that they may not see as worthwhile to live. So until we can start to until we can uncover what's beneath the surface, then we're unlikely to see those behavioral shifts. These are the things that you can only uncover, I believe, when you have trust and connection. Now, there may be more than 120 people that you're leading in your organization, and it might be hard to go beneath the surface with 500 employees. And that's why you need your managers to be able to build strong, trusting relationships with their people so that we really can understand what might be maintaining some of these old ways of working that are no longer serving us. We'll end today's discussion with a framework for looking at resistance, and that will further help us address the things that we might be finding lurking beneath the surface. But now let's move to the contextual. So the signals need to be congruent in order for the change to occur. And I remember sitting in a boardroom for a meeting at noon in a company that I worked in the past with. And the topic of the meeting was a power plant that was getting closed. So there was need for cost cutting. There was discussions about layoffs. So you could sense that the meeting had a very serious tone. However, in this company, there was an unwritten rule that if you scheduled a meeting over the lunch hour, that lunch would be provided. So a well-intentioned admin assistant saw there was some pretty heavy hitters coming to this meeting, and she wanted to impress. So she got out the chafing dishes and had the full catering set up with shrimp and steak. And you can imagine this is sending a very confusing message if you're sitting in the room. So on one hand, we're talking about cost cutting. On the other hand, we're sending messages that things are great. So this is just one example of how the messages that we send can be very confusing and can often contradict the kinds of shifts we need from people. Oftentimes, we think about change plans to be the training plan and the communications plan. Or we say, the reason why we're not getting the traction that we need is because of the people. We blame the people. In fact, that's just one lever that we have. So there are 8 that I've identified here that we can pull. And so I know this is a lot on one slide, and I'm not looking for you to absorb everything here. Really, the point is that there are more than one levers, and how do we make sure that we're pulling just enough to help people to know what they need to do or be reminded what they need to do when we're looking for them to do something different. And within each of these levers, there's different, depending on how draconian we need to be, there's different levels that we can pull. So for example, org structure, we know that to roll out an entire new org structure can be incredibly disruptive. We may be able to pull this lever, the org structure level, by changing who we invite to particular meetings, or perhaps there's a cross-functional team that can come together to be able to accomplish the same thing. So within each lever, there are more drastic means we can take or other means that might be less disruptive. Okay. An example, perhaps, to help also illustrate this. In one company I was working with, they were implementing a new performance management system. Around the table were the HR people, the IT people, and the meeting was being led by a project manager. The project manager started off by saying, change management is out of scope. Well, I think what he was saying was that IT did not want to be responsible for change management. But it also highlighted that what change was, how people conceptualized the change around the table also looked very different. To the IT people, the change was turning on a new system. So success was going to be when you can hit the switch and the system is on. To the HR people, the shifts were much different. They were around adoption and changing how people work, good performance management really is good management. It changes the conversations that managers have as they set expectations, as they provide feedback to their people. So, viewed as a system implementation, turn it on, it might just be that we're pulling one lever of change, systems or technology. Whereas for the HR person, they see that there's many levers that we need to be thinking about in order to make this change successful. In addition to training people on how to use the system, we're going to train them how to have conversations about performance. We are going to create workflow or checklists to help people know when they have to do each step of the process at what time of year. It also highlighted that at one part of the organization, there was an engineering director with 68 direct reports. So if the expectation is that every manager is completing a performance evaluation for their team, that's no longer reasonable, and highlighted that we needed a different org structure to be able to manage this new expectation. So the enablers and thinking about the enablers are a key way for being able to effectively implement change, but also to move the collective along with you. Here are 4 more of them. So in strategy execution types of changes, the levers that tend to have the most impact on success are around information flow and decision rights. So in one company I worked with, they were implementing a new org structure for project management, and they had a false start. So the first time they tried to implement this, when it didn't get the traction it needed, they replaced the people that were difficult, the people that were ineffective in leading the change and compelling people to do something different. They learned a lot, and I'm oversimplifying this, but when they tried this again, they realized that we have to be much more deliberate in who owns the customer in this new model, who has responsibility for certain decisions. How are we going to use technology in our system to make sure that everybody has access to the same information that is now working with the customer? So again, this just shows that when you are trying to implement something, we have to make sure that we're using all the levers and that they are being used congruently, because this is how we move fast. So we all have limited capacity, and yet we seem to ignore this fact, just human nature. We try to do more. But if we can simplify, if we can create focus, if we can reduce noise, and by reduce noise, that's a big part of removing these contradictory types of messages or removing things that are no longer as important. When we do these 3 things, we can stretch capacity. That's how we move faster. And you probably have experienced this if you've ever had to take a detour. So you know your normal route to work, and while you're driving, you're thinking about other things. Sometimes we've had that phenomena where we arrive at our destination and we don't even notice what's around us because we've been deep in thought. When you're doing a familiar drive, the thing you do every day, you can think about other things. You can process your to-do list, you can make calls, whatever. But if you have to do a detour, you're suddenly much more tuned in. There's new potholes to avoid. There's new signs. There's new scenery. You're paying attention to the clock because you don't want to be late. So when we ask people to do new things, that takes a tremendous amount of mental energy. And so we have to be able to, one, acknowledge that fact, but then find ways to free them up so that it's not so draining that it prevents them from doing the day job. I often get this question, should this change be transformational or incremental? Should we change everything all at once, or should we pace it? And we all experience right now that there is so much change going on, both inside the company and outside of the company. And there's a limit to what people can handle. And the leader's job is to pace it. So how do you know how much they can absorb? What's interesting, if we go back to the Change Your Diet research, the patients that slowly incremented or slowly made changes into their diet or their routine had a harder time seeing that all their efforts and sacrifices were paying off. Versus the radical change patients who started seeing almost in week 1 differences on the scale. They could walk across the street without pain. They were able to play with their kids. Those patients who could see the benefits quickly were much more motivated to continue making changes. So, a lot of research points to if you need to make a lot of change and you need to make it fast, do as much as you can at once. And again, going back to our systemic approach, if we're making sure that we're pulling these levers and removing contradictions and distractions, we'll be able to go a lot faster. So I wanted to end with how do we overcome resistance? Because when change efforts derail, when things get stuck, it's easy to say that people are resistant, they're being difficult. And yet we all know that when we're asked to do something different, it's personal and it might elicit some kind of threat response. And this is even for good things. Good changes can be really tough. The key to being able to get past the resistance is knowing what's underlying it and dialing down that threat. So David Rock is a neuropsychologist, and he has a model that I think is incredibly helpful. It's almost like a diagnostic framework for being able to understand what's underlying the resistance, because then it will point to clues on how to address it. And yes, we're here to talk about change through the collective. And I believe that it's still going to happen one person at a time. So through your relationships, through the relationships of your direct reports, how do we understand if the issue for the person is a fear of loss of status? Is it that they're feeling like a loss of certainty? Is it a loss of control or autonomy? A disruption to relationships, or a fairness issue? So the model acronym is SCARF: status, certainty, autonomy, relationships, and fairness. And with this, we will know what we can do about it. So if it's that it feels like everything around us is changing, well, what can we give them to hold on to? Is there a ritual that we can amplify or make sure that we continue to honor? Our monthly all hands meetings, we're going to continue to do. Our values. A lot of things are changing, but the values, who we are and how we work, that is still the same. If it's a threat to autonomy, there may be ways we can still offer choice, and we need to highlight that. For my kids, it's not a choice. Are you going to have vegetables for dinner? But it might be, do you want broccoli or carrots? So helping people to have that sense of control back can be powerful in helping them to get past the resistance. So in conclusion, there's a lot that goes into moving the collective. If we can focus in on the specific behaviors and the mindsets that maintain them, as well as thinking about this systemically and all the levers that we have, we'll be able to move the collective much faster. So is there anything from today that you feel that you will be able to take back to work today and apply to more confidently lead change? I invite you to put that in the chat, or if you have any questions that you'd like me to address, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, so let's honor this time and spend a few moments in reflection. She gave us a lot of good things to talk about. Eric, I'm wondering if you can put the levers back on the screen, because this might be a good opportunity for you to think about what are the levers that you can pull, or the model. That's great too.
Oh,
so,
you wanted, here we go.
yeah, because to me, it's almost like you're giving me a checklist. You're literally giving me a checklist of things I can go through and look at and think about when I'm seeing resistance and change in my teams and stuff. So if you haven't already, open up the chat, and if you can offer us something, what stuck out? What was significant? Erica asked us, what's one thing we can apply? Is there a lever you want to pull? And let's collectively kind of brainstorm a little bit and tap into the collective knowledge here and share some of your feedback. And then we will start to close things up. Yeah, so what's one thing you don't want to walk away from? I'll put in there the transformational versus incremental change. Like Erica, I have that conversation a lot too. And I've seen people do both. And I think it's painful when you do both, right? Because change is painful. You know what I mean? The method isn't necessarily trying to avoid the pain, but I think we've seen the pros and cons of doing it a little bit at a time. Like it kind of taps into you don't see the change, you just feel the pain, versus the transformational, you do feel some of the pain, but you see some of the growth too. And that's the piece that gets people moving. That was one of my big takeaways from your thing today.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
thank you,
thank you.
Elizabeth. The devil in the details. Make sure you're not just saying what you need to do, but actually give the behavior on what needs to change. Yeah, we as leaders do that all the time. We're like, hey, you need to get on this new system. Well, what's the, or like, is there a specific, are you checking in every day with the system? Are you sending the invoices out in this system? Or what's the specific behavior? Really honing in on that. Excellent. Good.
That's another way that you can rely on your managers. I mean, especially when you have to get very specific about how they're going to empower people or collaborate. Your manager can translate that for the individual within the context of their particular job.
Excellent. All right, Erica, any other closing thoughts for us as we start to wrap this up?
Well, I would invite you to connect with me. Happy to continue the conversation and appreciate the opportunity to be with you.
Nice, thank you. So again, I'm excited for all of you to meet Erica. If you're interested in coaching, if you're interested in workshops, she is a brilliant leader, and we are looking to get her connected with some of our clients. So at this point, thank you. So hopefully you got something out of the conversation today. I am going to very quickly, before we all head out, kind of continue the wrap up. And so again, we build this content based on what we hear from you. So I'm very excited to say that next time we meet, we're going to be hearing from Elizabeth Terrace. And actually, Elizabeth, you're here today. Would you mind, if it's not too much, would you take yourself off and maybe give us a wave?
Hey there. Hi, everybody.
Where are you at? Where are you at? You bump right us out. Thank you, Elizabeth Terrace. Welcome. So next time, we're going to be talking in lab about making better, faster decisions. So last time we talked about leading at speed, and that created a lot of conversations amongst the lab. And we spent a lot of time talking about decision making, and it kind of left us in a place of like, okay, let's talk about decision making. How do we make good decisions? So Elizabeth is going to join us next quarter on October 15th, 1 p.m., same time, same place, first month of the next quarter. She is a cognitive psychologist, and Elizabeth Terrace was actually my lab manager in grad school. We worked in a neuroscience lab together. So she ran a lot of the experiments there, and that's where I was exposed to a lot of the science around the neuroscience of trust and organizations. So Elizabeth's going to come with some really cool content. So that is the QR to register for next time. That's the topic and conversation that we'll be getting into now. But I encourage you, before you you leave, so before you head out, drop something in the comments. What are we learning? What piece of expertise do you want to share before you go? Because again, the point is to share knowledge and stuff here. So this was just a drop in the can. We have lots more content. If you're interested in coaching and education and training, give us a call. Let's have a conversation, because remember, leadership is hard and it should never be done in isolation. So thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you got something out of this. We will stay till the end. But next time we will be here again talking about decision making. Thank you for taking